Hello, everyone. Hi. What's up? This isn't an official episode. I've gone rogue. The pursuing X people are probably asleep. The professor's snoozing. Lori is counting sheep. I've gone rogue. I'm live on the air by myself. It's Saturday, October 27th. It's late at night. It's 11:40 p.m. here, Mountain Time in Arizona, because I didn't realize. Sorry, as I adjust my music, I didn't realize that, not being from here, that Arizona, the time doesn't change with daylight savings time, but the other mountain time around us, the other states that use what's called mountain time, it does. And so I had a little bit of a screw up with the other night's guest, but she was amazing, Sharon Rose. If you didn't see that, check that out. That's amazing. I didn't have my regular broadcast earlier tonight. I had a minor family emergency. There is a member of our family that has a chronic illness that needs to be addressed right then and there sometimes. And so that can make my schedule a little bit wonky sometimes. And tonight was one of those times. I was supposed to have John Lewis on tonight, and my apologies to him. I could not get home in time to do the regular show, but I've invited John to come back on, and he's welcome to come back on, and we'll do it all then. So John Lewis, please forgive me. Thank you so much for your patience, and you're welcome to come back. And this gives me an opportunity to also talk about a few different things that were on my mind. It's been on my mind lately. And I wanted to address it. And I didn't really want to address this stuff with a guest on, because it would just be taking time away from whoever the guest was of the evening. So this is actually a good opportunity for me. I've been kind of wanting to clear a few things up. The first thing I really want to get to is earlier in the week, I called into Jimmy Church's show, Fade to Black, and it was the episode where Richard Dolan was on, and they were talking about the secret space program, trademark deal, and all that. And I got a wild hair, and I decided to call into Jimmy Church, and I'd been in the chat room, and I was in the chat room for Richard Dolan's show. Richard Dolan, what he did was he had a kind of like behind the scenes live stream on his YouTube channel. And so there was a bunch of us in there, and we were all watching and commenting and watching it from Richard's point of view, but could hear all of Jimmy Church's end as well. So it was really interesting. It was like being an insider in Richard Dolan's appearance on this, and we were able to comment in the chat room, and there was a lot of people on there. The last time I looked, that video had 16,000 views, and I'm not surprised. It was wild. And I do want to say hello to CW Chanter. He was in that chat room, Dark Journalist, Joe from the Carolinas, all three of you guys. CW Chanter has agreed to come onto the show. So I'm working on a date, and we're going to have him on soon, and we'll address some of this stuff. Dark Journalist, I would love to do an interview with you. I'm going to be reaching out to you and seeing if you'll come on the show. And Joe from the Carolinas, we've been playing footsies, and I think Joe knows we're interested. And so there's going to be that invitation is out there as well. And so anyway, I called into Jimmy Church's show, and they were talking about this SSP thing. And I've made it no secret that I am not a fan of the camp of Corey Good, Emery Smith, David Wilcock, all these people that have the super fantastic stories. And I'm just going to be straight up and say, like, I don't believe it. I just don't. There's no evidence. There's nothing to back it up. And a lot of what is said really just flies in the face of conventional medical knowledge or conventional physics. And I'm not saying that exotic sciences aren't out there. Of course they are. And but I just don't buy it. And I don't have to explain too deeply why I don't buy it. Just intuitively, I just think it's bullshit. And so I've made jokes about those guys on my show from the very beginning, and I've made no secret of how I felt about that. But there's a dichotomy going on with that, in that I went to Contact in the Desert, and long story short, I met Jimmy Church. He granted me an interview, and he did 24 minutes when he said he would give me 10. And he was super nice, and he was super kind, and it was a great interview. It was very personable, and I like Jimmy Church. I personally like Jimmy Church. I like Jimmy Church's show, and I like the Fader Knots. I just happen to not be in the Corey Good, David Wilcock camp, which kind of puts me at odds a little bit, because I do agree with C.W. Chanter and others who are out there commenting. And I guess that's what's a little bit different about this episode as well, is that I'm kind of opining on some of this stuff, where this show is not really about that, but I'm going to break it down tonight. I want to get this out. So, it puts me at odds because I like Jimmy Church and I like his show. And I just want to say, I would be really, really happy if Mysterious Forces Live was as successful as Fade to Black. I think it's very successful, and Jimmy has built that from the ground up. And I admire what he has done. I admire his hard work and the product that he has come up with. For the most part, 95% of it. And that's where this Corey Good and David Wilcock business comes in. I like him. I like his show. I think he's very smart. I think he's an incredible talent. But I don't buy those guys. But, other than kidding around about them on my show or commenting about it on my show, I'm not really going to do too much about it. Like, I'm not going to go on a crusade against these guys. That's not my bag, and that's not what this show is about. But anyway, I called into Jimmy's show, and I was like, I got a little bit hyped up. It was weird. Jimmy and Richard were talking, and right when he picked up, and he was like 602, and I knew it was me. I got that adrenaline rush. My voice got a little bit shaky because I got my heart pumped hard a few times, and but I was saying, I was trying to be kind of light about it and kind of gentle about it. And I was like, hey, Jimmy, what would you do if, and I use this analogy of a small town doctor in the Old West, and trying to practice medicine, and having a snake oil salesman roll into town and start selling snake oil across the street, and this affecting his patients and his ability to treat his patients there in the town. And Jimmy, I think it pissed him off, and he kind of just brushed it off, and he passed it right to Richard. He wouldn't comment on it. I had aimed the question at Jimmy, and he just brushed it off to Richard, and Richard knew what I was getting at, even though I guess my approach had been a little bit weird. My setup had been a little bit unconventional. It wasn't the, typical caller calling in and saying, I read your book and I once saw 1972, that wasn't what was happening. I was jumping in on this, and I was on Jimmy. I had called into Jimmy Church's show about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it went really well. And so it's like, I feel like I have a good rapport with him. And as I was saying this, like on the inside in that moment, I was like, it was a little cringy even for me. I was like, whoa, Jimmy didn't like that. And but at the same time, I'm being completely honest, and I'm being myself, and I'm expressing my honest opinion. So I don't want to backtrack and I don't know, like I don't want to defend my opinion too much. There are a lot of people who see it the way that I do, including Richard Dolan, even though he's really diplomatic about it in the way that he expresses that. But there's a whole lot of us that just don't buy that whole bullshit, super fantastic, I went to fucking Mars for 20 years and came back and blah, blah, blah. And the blue chickens, it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I have a line where I have a sense of a bullshit detector or a sense of credulity, and those guys and their stories just pushes that button for me. So intuitively, again, I don't believe them. And so I called in, and Richard jumped on it, and Richard just commented, and he had a pretty strong response. I and I got to be honest, I really wanted Jimmy to answer that question. I really, but he obviously, he's a pro, and he magnificently sidestepped it and just brushed it right off to Richard. And Richard, I think I had framed the question in such a way that it had opened the door for Richard to give a more direct, maybe a little bit harsher response, because he had the analogy, the analogy to lean on. And so within the analogy that I was using, he was able to be a little more firm and in his opinion on that. So I found that interesting. And in a way, even though I was trying to get a response from Jimmy Church, it allowed Richard Dolan to give that stronger rebuttal and kind of drive that home a little bit. But if Jimmy Church ever sees this, I don't know if he will. I'm going to write him an email, and I'll send him a link to this video. And I have no animus towards Jimmy Church, and I just want to say that I was speaking from my heart, and I was not trolling his show. I did not call in to be a troll. I did not call in to try to be contradictory for the sake of doing that, or to act stupid or whatever. That was my honest opinion, and I really wanted his honest reaction. And we got Richard Dolan's, but that's okay. That's Jimmy's show, and I would be happy to talk to Jimmy about any of this at any time, but no animus towards Jimmy Church. And so that being said, this broader context, here's a guy that I admire. I admire the level of success that he's generated for himself. I admire his skill level. But then he endorses these guys on his show that I vehemently disagree with. And they're on his show a lot, and he does events with them. And I'm trying to separate for myself these what I see as positive things about Jimmy Church, which is really, as a person, super positive. But the fact that he's kind of aligned himself with these guys. I want to break down some of my analysis. I've been listening to CW Chanter and Dark Journalists and some of these other commentators out there. I don't know if they call themselves journalists. I think Dark Journalists obviously is a journalist. I don't know if CW Chanter considers himself a journalist, maybe a citizen journalist. I don't know. Maybe we'll ask him that when he comes on the show. But my analysis of this is that let's see. There's a couple ways to look at this. You can see this as kind of a ham-fisted attempt by Jimmy Church to use guess or align himself with people for the sake of making money and using the gravitas of their celebrity to advance his own show or whatever, or increase his ratings, which is possible. And I think there's another way to look at it, and then it's the way that I lean towards this, and I look at it this way. And I'll start with the example of Coast to Coast AM. I don't begrudge what Coast to Coast AM does. Coast to Coast AM has some guests come on there and say some crazy shit. And they have, just like Corey Good and David Wilcock, except it's all paranormal, whatever it is, the kind of nutty people come on Coast to Coast. And, I've heard interviews on there. I've heard guests on there where I can't believe that George is like sitting there with a straight face or even asking the straight questions of the people with the crazy story. And, but it's mainstream radio. It's worldwide. It's not national. It's not local. It's not regional. It's worldwide. And they did that with terrestrial radio the old school way. And so, much like television and other forms of mainstream media, they have to be kind of homogenized and kind of generic and have to offer a broad spectrum of points of view, perhaps ideally with mainstream media, and give space for lots of different voices and lots of different people. And truthfully, this is a business. Getting views, getting clicks, having people watch your show, having advertisers pay for your show, however it is that you're monetizing your show, whether it's old school mainstream media or kind of like what I'm doing right here, me and many, many other people on YouTube and on other platforms. Um, it is about making money. It's about making money for me. I'm going to be straight up with you right now. This is a career choice for me, and I want to make money from this channel because this is my passion, and I feel like I have something to bring to this circus. And it's not, I think what I'm bringing is unique. But to stay on topic, I don't begrudge someone else monetizing their situation or seeing this in the way that old school broadcasters do, and that they just bring on the people who have the ratings that kind of push that forward momentum. I mean, you can imagine over the years, people who might have gone on talk shows, Johnny Carson or Dave Letterman or anyone else, and they probably had guests on there plugging movies that they thought sucked, or guests that they didn't like, or people who were, whatever, fucked up on cocaine. A couple times you've seen that on Letterman where you just know someone was, on there really tilted. And they had to do that because it was that catch-all homogenous media presentation. Let's put it all out there, And so that's what those do. Those shows, that Coast to Coast AM, they paint with a broad brush. And I think Jimmy Church has modeled himself after that. I think that he allows, if he has someone come on his show that's going to, fill in a slot or get good ratings, he's going to have them on. And I think Jimmy Church is a crusader in one regard, in that he has a message perhaps about disclosure or contact because of his own personal experiences. But beyond that, he's a broadcaster. I don't think he's a guy with a particular mission. The guy's a broadcaster, and he's made a career choice to start his own show, his own network, and he's very successful at it. And that's why he is a success. And that is why he's on Coast to Coast AM. Then you get people more like C.W. Chanter and Dark Journalist, who are getting into deep analysis of ufology and what's going on in this scene, whether it be raw data. But some of this stuff tends to focus on the personalities behind all this. And personally, I love it. I love what Dark Journalist is doing. I love what C.W. Chanter is doing. Joe from the Carolinas, I like this deep analysis, and I like shining light on some of these dark corners, because I don't want ufology to turn into a joke. I don't want ufology to be turned into some kind of fucking circus like what it's starting to look like. And when you get disreputable people trying to front themselves as serious people in a movement like this that already struggles with a PR nightmare in terms of interfacing with the public, because the government has done such a good job of ridiculing ufology and people who study it that, it's largely been seen culturally as a joke. It's been taken more seriously lately, and that's a good thing. But traditionally, it's still kind of fringy, jokey, and, it's the same shit. You always hear the X-Files theme when they play a segment on the news. But anyway, it makes us look bad. It makes us look stupid, and it doesn't help with the skeptics, and it doesn't help with the general public, and that's what I don't like about it. And the other facet of this gem, if you want to use that analogy, this is a multifaceted gem. It's not any one thing about all of this. It's about all of these things being interconnected. And that other factor is being seen by the public, how the public perceives all of this. Just I don't know, the silly factor. We don't want the silly factor, and this is my main point on this other facet. People really want to believe in something right now. I think that Joseph Campbell, the philosopher who had done the series Power of Myth and many other academic books and was a great scholar, Joseph Campbell, in The Power of Myth, he talked about our modern culture lacking any kind of belief system or rooted belief system in a real mythology, that the mythology that had helped previous civilizations along has disappeared in the modern age. And you know, religion has been replaced by science for the most part, and rational thought, so-called rational thought, has taken over and become more prominent. Or so you would think, unless you turn on the news, but that's another story. But people want something to believe in these troubled times. They really do. And I think people like fantasy. And I think and this is no slam on my new agey brothers and sisters. There are many things that are called new age or metaphysical. I tend to be a person who has a metaphysical view of the universe. I don't think it's cut and dry. I'm not a cut and dry atheist that says that there is nothing metaphysical beyond this. I don't think we're dead meat when we're gone and all that. But I'm not a person that believes in religion either. And that's why I choose the term metaphysics. It's old school, but I like that term because it's applicable, it's accurate. Metaphysics, it's scientific. I think there is a scientific root to all this, but I think there's some crazy, strange shit about our universe. There's high strangeness going on. And, you know, we all know what they are. Quantum mechanics, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of reality to this multiverse that we don't know about, that we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. So it's a complex system. Anyway, we don't have a mythology. We're kind of adrift, I would say, in terms of mythology and culturally. Traditional religion is losing its steam. People are not going to church like they used to be. And I think that's part of this pushback culturally. Again, not a political show, but we're getting a lot of religious pushback because churches are losing their power in terms of people attending. But they found other ways to make money, and they've also gained political power. And so that's how they really wield that. And I think a lot of religious people, and from many religions, whether they're Christians here in the U.S. or maybe even Muslims in Saudi Arabia, you know, they feel their power and their influence slipping away because the onward push of modern society and of technology, and especially the power of the internet and the interconnectivity of humanity at this point, it's an irresistible force. And that is going to be a tidal wave that washes over religions. And I think the people who hold religion as a very central tenet of their life, very devout people, I think that's a lot of their identity. So any threat to any religion, religious belief, is a threat to their identity and their being and their existence. So it's very personal for them. So I understand that. We're all looking for something. And I think we fill that hole within ourselves through various means, whether it's through art or whether we don't fulfill it, or there's all these human pursuits to do that. But, you know, new agey people are kind of, you know, they're looking for the same thing. And I think some of the new age topics and philosophies can be just as misleading as some conventional religions. And I think you have to pick and choose. I think there's truth out there. I think there are positive things that religions can offer, but I see a lot of negativity. And I think personally, dogma is not such a good thing. I think the more flexible and adaptable we are in terms of our perceptions and our ability to amend previously held beliefs, I think that ability to change and kind of bend and adapt is much stronger than people who rigidly hold on to something and they never change and they want to keep it all the same. And, they're trying to maintain this grip of control on a world that is a manifestation of this multiverse that is always changing. The only thing that constantly stays the same in this world is change. And change is all around us all the time. We are changing all the time, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of us. It's all in flux. And so there's this desperate need for control and or to make sense of it all, or to categorize everything, right? Because that's what we humans do well. We categorize things. And so when we have UFOs and these kind of alternative spiritual beliefs, and then you have these strong personalities come along and start to hold sway over people with a fantastic story. And I mean, how many times has this happened throughout the course of human history, right? A man or a woman comes along with a fantastic story and it captivates people and it captures their imagination, and they're able to attach some of their hope onto that, some of their aspirations onto this larger than life story, this story that has a lot of themes that go way beyond their ordinary life, and lets them live vicariously through these personalities, these fantastic stories. And if you're part of it, and if you're going to go to a convention, or you're going to buy a book, you're going to meet this person or see a lecture, then that's the ultimate buy-in into this cult of personality, right? That's the ultimate buy-in on this cult of personality, is that inner connection with these people and these fantastic stories. And that's people looking for longing in their lives. And I don't begrudge those people. I'm going to be straight up about that right now. I don't begrudge those people, because quite honestly, our society is pretty fucked up right now. There are a lot of fucked up, wrong things going on. And I'm not going to get into it, but that we all know what it is. There are some fucked up things going on right now. And people are feeling a little bit lost and a little bit adrift. And personally, I resent it that these guys would come along and kind of take advantage of that to make a buck. If they want to go around, tell these stories and pretend to be whatever it is they want to pretend to be, that's fine. But they're making a buck off of it. And they're using these people to sell books, sell products. And it was, Gaia TV and everything that's going on with that. And in the process of making a buck and telling lies to people's faces, looking them in the eyes and lying to them, they're making the field of ufology look silly and stupid. They're making it look silly. And that's why I resent it, because there is truth out there. There is truth to this. UFOs are a real phenomena. I'm not going to say what they are because I don't know. I think very few people know, if anyone that's human actually knows exactly what's going on. I don't know, but I don't claim to know. And I'm never going to claim to know unless there's some kind of verifiable disclosure that we can all, as a community, agree upon that is an objective truth. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to say, you're never going to hear from me any claim of knowing what aliens are doing, whether they are aliens, what their agenda may or may not be. I have no idea. I'm just fascinated with the phenomena, and I believe that it's real, and I think it's important, and I think that if the knowledge about this phenomena were revealed, it would change the course of human history forever in a dramatic way. And I think there's a lot of you people out there that see it that way as well. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir in that regard. I don't want to overstate that. I guess I just want to be clear that that's what it is. That's that's the thorn in my side about Corey Good, David Wilcock, Emery Smith, those guys. You know, these people telling these stories. That's my take on that. And you're not going to hear me get that deep on that in my regular show, because my regular show is really not about that. But I'll tell you why I'm doing this video. I was inspired by C.W. Chanter and Dark Journalist and hearing other people jump in and kind of give their take. And I have been contacted behind the scenes by a few people, and I'm not going to talk about that, but there might be some things in the works that I might participate in as a group effort. And I'm not going to go into that. But when people started contacting me behind the scenes and some other things started to manifest from that call to Jimmy Church's show, I kind of jumped in with both feet on that, and I took a side in a big way. And I name dropped on Jimmy Church's show and might have pissed him off in the process. And, you know, I don't know. I hope I didn't. Jimmy Church, if I pissed you off, I apologize. No animus towards you. I know that this has been kind of rambling, but I've been carrying the stuff around me for about 4 days now about the phone call to Fade to Black and what's going on. And you know, everyone knows by now, of course, that they dropped the case on trademarking secret space program. They dropped the suit wisely, so that was pure idiocy. It's just stupid. I'm sorry, it's fucking stupid. So that's the official word on that. But anyway, I just wanted to get in on that, and I look forward to talking to C.W. Chanter soon. And like I said, Joe from the Carolinas and Dark Journalist, I'd love to have you on. We can hash some of this stuff out. I think it's weird. Ufology and all of this is kind of like alternative research topics and alternative media. But what some other people are doing, there's like this subset of people who are doing this even more in-depth analysis and kind of a subculture within a subculture doing this research and doing analysis. And I think it's important. I think it's important, but I don't want to focus too much on the personality stuff. Like, to me, those guys are just kind of a joke, and I get to have fun and bag on them. But I don't take them seriously, and I don't want to talk about them all the time either. It's just relevant because this whole thing kind of blew up. And I think a lot of people were fascinated by the conversation between Richard Dolan and Jimmy Church. And I would say that 16,000 plus views of video attest to the fact that people are seriously interested in that topic. And I guess since I jumped in the middle of that I wanted to clarify my thoughts and intentions with this video. And I just want to kind of interface with everybody because I missed my regular show tonight. And I want to address, before I go, a couple of programming notes. We're in flux here. I mentioned the other night, last night, that we're going to drop the Sunday night show. And we're going to play with the length of the other shows. And there's still some internal debate, but ultimately this is my show. And I know which way I'm leaning, but I'm not going to make a definite decision, but there'll probably be more show. I'm thinking about bumping it up to an hour. And instead of having a Sunday show, it would be an hour Friday, an hour Saturday. And then we'll drop a pre-recorded interview in the middle of the week to keep things, keep momentum going in the middle of the week, and see if that formula works better. Because the data shows that Sunday night has kind of been a drag. And it's also been difficult, believe it or not, to find guests for Sunday night. So that's just kind of a behind the scenes thing. Maybe you didn't really need to know how the sausage is made, but that's just a reality of doing this kind of show and trying to keep it fresh and interesting for you. And I want to do my usual shout outs. Jiggy at Paranormal Hood and Jimmy Pearson of Fascination Street. They contacted me, and I'm going to go on Fascination Street. And I want to say hello to Shadows of Your Mind magazine. David Partridge, you rock. You're awesome. Stay in touch, David Partridge. If you don't know what Shadows of Your Mind magazine is, check it out. It's worth it. Fantastic art, great journalism, something you should really check out. If you haven't liked, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And please share this. Share this on your social media. Tell your friends about it. And I don't know. Here I am. I'm going to be back next week. I'm going to broadcast live from Disneyland on Halloween. Look for that. It'll be a spontaneous broadcast. Thank you for watching. Bless you all. Have a great week. And I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.